always telling your stories, and it's time someone tells ours. We're humans first, journalists second. We chose this career to give you a voice. Now we're voicing ours. It's true, journalism has much room for improvement, but not all hope is lost, and we want your trust back by humanizing one journalist at a time. We're sharing with you what we go through to bring you the news. The pain, the tears, the trauma, and the mental health struggles. It's painful, and sometimes we even work 2 jobs to make ends meet. But we all have something in common. The passion, the joy, and the love we feel for storytelling and holding the powerful accountable. That includes holding ourselves accountable. So here are stories from us. This is how we want to help improve the news industry. The Awakened Journalist is proud to present Media Healers by Emiliana Molina Fajardo. Hi everyone, welcome back to The Awakened Journalist and our special project, Media Healers. Today we have this pleasure of speaking with Hugo Bernal. He's a former sports commentator and news producer for ESPN Español. He was in the news industry for more than a decade before deciding to leave the world of sports and news in 2020. For almost 8 years, he covered major sporting events like the FIFA World Cup, the Olympic Games, the UEFA Champions League, NFL Championships, MLS Cup Playoffs, Major League Baseball, and so much more. He was also the first person ever in the history of ESPN Español to go from being a producer to becoming an on-camera talent. So Hugo, welcome. It's a pleasure to have you here with us today.
Thank you, Emiliana. Thank you for having me, and it's a pleasure. It's a pleasure to share any experiences that I can probably help somebody, hopefully, out there. And it's always a pleasure to share this kind of experiences. Thank you for having me,
Hugo. So I always start asking everyone, how did you decide to go into the news industry, and for you, the world of sports inside of the news industry?
Well, that's pretty much a given for me. Sports, it's been a part of my life since as far as I can remember, especially soccer, football, as we all know it. And it's been in my life every single day, pretty much. And for many years, it was my main motivation, really. I would go to school, but I was thinking about football, soccer all the time. So that had to play a big role in it. And eventually, when everything panned out that I wasn't going to be on the professional level that I wanted to, or that I aspired, or that I dreamed of, well, what could be the closest one? And that's when, according to my studies, according to my capacities, to my strengths, sports reporting or sports commentator, sports news, sports producing became a big part of it. And obviously ESPN Deportes would be the main goal. And fortunately, I was able to join the wave and actually lasted for a while. And it was exciting.
You did, yeah. How was that first job? How did you land your first job?
Well, after graduating, obviously, I was in New York City. So obviously, the main goal, I would think, for many sports reporters or sports commentators, ESPN would be the main goal. That's probably one of the top places where you can get. Usually people start on a local side and then start growing and eventually get to ESPN. So I just tried my luck. I was close because it was in Bristol, Connecticut. So I was close to the main office. So I applied for a job and got it. All I wanted was the opportunity to be there. And it worked because I started as a assistant production, really in the bottom part where everything starts right after school. So that was good. And worked my way up from there.
Which is a very normal trend for journalists in general. They just, get your foot in the door and then start moving up the ladder from there. And that's very much your story.
Yeah. So I had the opportunity, and I was working as a assistant production for the web videos in ESPN Deportes and the website. I was in charge of doing the NBA highlights. Okay. Everything started doing NBA highlights and producing them, really. And then one day, the main talent came over And he told me, okay, we had like, I don't know, 13 games, and he came in, very recognized guy. He came in and he said, all right, from this list, I'm just gonna do this, and this 3 games. I have 13 to put on the website. I'm not gonna argue with him. I'm new. I've been there for a month or so I'm not gonna argue with him, especially well recognized sports commentator. And I called my boss and I told him, listen, he left already. He only did 3, and that's it. So he asked me, what do you feel like doing it yourself? It was just voiceover. I didn't have to be on camera or anything. So can you voice them over in Spanish? I was like, yeah, I'll give it a shot. This, of course, this is 11 o'clock at night after all the games finished.
Wow.
Obviously, I didn't leave that day until 7 in the morning, maybe, because I had
Wow.
to voice them and produce them, of course. But that was the first opportunity.
Yeah.
And I took it. And next morning, obviously, I mean, I go to bed, everything. I got an email and he said, they look good. They look good. Do you feel doing it again? So why not? And since then, it just didn't stop.
Wow. That's beautiful. And that's very much, I think, how a lot of journalists that want to be on camera or want to be, some kind of talent end up starting out, right? Like,
yeah. If you see the chance, and it's part of the industry, I believe. It's obviously, I mean, everybody wishes to be on camera or be that guy who's giving the news, who's calling the game and everything. But unfortunately, it's such a specific job, and it's beautiful. Don't get me wrong. I love it. And I loved every single moment of it. But it also, once you're part of it, it takes a toll on you. And we can get more into detail with that. But the industry, I think it just works that way. If you see the opportunity, take it. And I don't think it's the only industry that it's like that. I mean, as we've all heard all kind of stories where they just had that chance and they took it and it worked. And many of other people, including me also, it just didn't pan out the right way. And everything is valid. I think it's just if you see the chance, take it. And if it doesn't work that way, find another chance. Make the chance.
exactly. Yeah. It's an opportunity and a door opening that if you don't take it in that moment, somebody else might. Unfortunately, like you said, it does take a toll. And oftentimes, I don't know if this was your case, but working until 7 a.m. in the morning and having responsibilities being added to you don't come with additional pay. I don't know if that's your case in that.
Especially at the beginning.
Exactly.
Yeah, especially at the beginning. I mean, scheduling, remember, if I remember correctly, it would be 5:30 in the afternoon till 2:30 in the morning every day. And my weekends, let's call it that way, it would be a Monday and a Thursday. So you can think of what kind of life is that. But that's the other thing. I mean, and we talked about it. It's the industry kind of makes it, especially, and not to blaming it on ESPN itself, just in the industry in general. I mean, you're in sports, so sports happen at night. Sports happen during the weekends. So you know that you're going into that. But also, all kind of news break anytime. You never know. And yes, there's a way of taking it, but also it just, you have to be aware that you're getting into that, and you have to be able to balance it with your life in general. Think about it. I didn't have a regular weekend for a few years. Just a regular weekend to wake up in the Saturday morning and have breakfast and everything. Nah, it didn't work that way.
Especially like a Monday and a Thursday, it's not even 2 days back to back.
2 days together, yeah.
Wow. So let's
and that was for a few years.
Hugo. Yeah. How did it take a toll on you? What do you think was like the biggest impact or the hardest thing to deal with for you?
See, at the beginning, it's always the chance where, and I think it's part of a industry too, and not only in reporting or news, or most of industries would do it that way, because you're hungry, you're willing to sacrifice many things to put your job first, and it could be fair, but how long you want to take it, who knows, and how long can you hold it, also, who knows. So at first it was okay, but then slowly it starts to get a toll on you, and especially to me, sleeping wise, I'd start gaining a lot of weight because my sleeping habits were just off the crazy. That was one thing. So it had to be a very, very strict diet and change all that. And it's just because I like to be well, and it was harder. it was harder to sleep with those sleeping patterns. But it wasn't until I realized until I had my first kid, my daughter. I was married already. My wife knew already what she was getting into. Imagine I told her, she was living down in New York City in Manhattan, and I tell her, yeah, let's move up to Bristol, Connecticut, which is in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah.
Connecticut. So
From New
that
York
was
to Connecticut, that's a huge change.
exactly. So literally, we would see bears outside my house close to many mornings. Yeah.
Wow.
From Manhattan. So
Yeah.
she would live in the downtown until we could see a bear just poking into our garbage can outside. It was hard for everybody, really. But
Yeah.
I mean, there was also a goal to follow, and especially at the beginning, where the growth went exponentially high. That's where you think, wow, this is working out perfectly, and I'm gonna be a star soon, because at first, obviously, you're really down in the bottom.
Yeah.
And if you start growing, and if you start getting a bit of opportunities here and there, the growth just looks vertical almost.
Yeah.
So you get excited, obviously. And then you start to get into traveling also, where you go to sporting events where you're excited. It's like you're field level, you're going crazy. Yes, it's cool until kids come over. I mean, my daughter was born, and then my wife is calling me when she's sick, and then she can't handle it, and she has a full-time job also. That's when you start to realize, was this really what I wanted? Is it really worth it? Just being down here in field level,
Yeah.
Is it really worth it? And it is. Don't get me wrong. Everybody who does it, they do an amazing job. I met many people who are amazing at their jobs. The most talented in the world, really. But I don't know. It's not for everybody. I would say it's not for everybody, and you just have to be aware, and then you just have to be conscious that there's a toll, and there's also you have to find the balance. I think, to me, the most important thing is to find the balance. And I don't know, it's something that we should really talk about it, and that's why I'm here. That's why it is so important to me to share these kind of experiences. And maybe I'm not trying to convince anybody not to study or study this or do this or don't do that. That's not the reason. It's just, if you're doing it, just be aware of what you are doing and what you're getting into.
Let's talk a little bit about that, the work-life balance, right? Because it's a profession where they tell you it's a lifestyle. News happens 24/7. You have to be checking it constantly, because God forbid there's breaking news and you're not there to cover it. So it's a constant adrenaline rush and PTSD and FOMO, just so much goes on, even on your days off from news. How were you able to find work-life balance, or did you not?
I did. And there was, I think the only thing that comes up to the real balance, it's when you reach certain level where producers and higher levels of in the industry realize that it's not an easy job.
Yeah.
Even for them and for everybody in the production side, but it's not an easy job for the talent or for the productions, because many people think whenever you see a guy on TV reporting live from anywhere, there's a group behind it, and they're doing the same as you are. I mean, they're working and their families are left behind also. So just to keep them in mind as well. And I'm telling you this because, as I said, I started from both sides.
Yeah.
So, and at the end, when I was in front of the camera, I would see the team behind it, and I would help them carrying the stuff, because it's heavy, it's a lot of stuff, and I knew how was it to be there. So let's just not forget about them either. But how to find the balance? It's to have communication with the higher levels, and they do understand. Now, as soon as you start realizing that they're not getting the same, you're not in the same channel, as in, listen, this is tough, I have to take some time off, or let's just try to get early, let's try to do it in a more convenient way. As long as you're looking for those solutions, it's always good. And then just remind them that you have a family, so as them. And as I said, it's just a balance between, let's do it more efficient, more where at the end of the day you're satisfied with your job, but also at home everything is okay. I'm pretty sure, and I mean, I cannot tell you for myself, but I can tell you that many families had suffered pretty much splitting up or ending up in a difficult situation just because of this type of work. So that's something that we have to be really conscious about.
Yeah, for sure. Hugo, let's go into some of the events you covered. What were some of the most memorable events that you covered?
Well, there were many, and that's one thing. I mean, it is fun. Don't get me wrong. It is fun to be there. The excitement as a fan, because you're first of all, you're always a fan before you were a reporter, or especially in sports, you were a fan first, a fanatic. So it's exciting. Believe me. The most at first. I would be looking for events to cover, and obviously the main ones, they were already taken because they have the special reporter for this, a special reporter for that, and I would be looking for events, and they weren't as big as I would want to. But eventually, NFL started to come up, baseball started to come up, boxing fights. I went to, I would say, 8 straight fights of El Canelo Alvarez, the Mexican boxer, in Vegas, which I was a fan of Vegas. Let's put it this way.
Yeah.
Right now, I would say I have 100 places more to go before we decide to go to Vegas. It's exciting, but I would go to many other places.
Yeah.
It's tiring. Vegas, it's tiring. Many experiences. I got to cover the Euros up in Paris for a month. That was before we got married. So we lived there for a month. Beautiful experience. The Champions League, the World Cup, in Brazil. Also, what was I gonna say? Oh, the World Series. That's when we cover the most at the end of my laps at ESPN. The World Series, just going to every single game, traveling back and forth with teams. Those experiences, I mean, I wouldn't change them for anything. It's just we're in different paths right now, and I'm happy with what happened. And not until recently, I went to a stadium and I was looking around, and I could enjoy it, and I could have a beer. I wasn't working anymore, so it's fun.
Let's get a little bit into that. So you quit the news industry in 2020. What was
Correct.
like the ultimate factor that made you decide, I gotta leave?
Well, COVID had a big impact, obviously, on this decision. It works like professional athletes. You sign a contract and it has an expiration date.
Yeah.
So the expiration date was coming, and we had everything really set up for a few more years of contract, and COVID broke.
Yeah.
And also, so from those 3 years, I believe we had agreed just verbally.
Yeah.
It became a year only, or 6 months or something. So I knew that it was red flags all over the place. It wasn't going anywhere. Not anywhere. I mean, who knew? There's those questions that what would have happened. I didn't decide to find out what could happen. I had 2 kids to take care of, and I couldn't just be having an expiration time ticking behind my back while I was going to work. So decided to find a different path. And fortunately, it's been a successful path that I've taken. Yeah. But as for the news and sports industry reporting, it was great. I mean, it was, let's say, there's a saying in Spanish, lo bailado, nadie me lo quita. Whatever I experienced, it's there, and I enjoyed it, and it was a fun time.
Yeah. And so what are you doing now? Where are you now?
Well, it was a big change. It was 180 degrees. It went from sports reporting, literally from being at the places in field level with players and everything, and now we're doing business consulting from there was a project I sold myself, and it's working, and I thought I saw the chance. I created another chance because I had that expiration contract coming up, the expiration date of the contract coming up. So I had to make an opportunity, and I did, and I took it, and it's working so far. It's been 2 years, and it's been working great. It's just with a project from a company that we're bringing it to south of Florida. Unfortunately, and thank God, it's working very, very well, and I'm enjoying it. It's a different way to go, but it's also satisfying to know that there's also this level of, I don't want to say being comfortable, but it's just that level. It's easier, that balance, family, work, it's easier to find with this kind of industry. As I said before, it's not that the other industry was wrong, or it's not the right one. It's just for different phases of your life. But as I said, I don't regret any single moment of it. I just think that we should all be aware that the news reporting industry could get to you at some point.
And to go back to, the comment that you just made, the news industry can get to you at some point, and it does for all of us. I think every journalist I've spoken to feels this way, right? There's not one that doesn't feel this way, like overwhelmed or overworked or burnt out. And you mentioned when we spoke over the phone, and you just mentioned it briefly, that for the first time in a long time, you were able to go, I think it was a soccer game, and sit in the stadium
Correct.
and just sip a beer and enjoy it. Can you
Correct.
talk a little bit about that? Because yes, obviously it's so much fun to go to the Olympics or to go to the World Cup or the NFL, and it's enjoyable, but it is also your job. So you are enjoying, but you're under the stress of meeting deadlines, of getting the story out, getting every, goal, or reporting it the right way, getting the interviews, and sometimes, finishing work at like 2 or 3 a.m. because games often end at 10 or 11. So it can be tiring. Tell me a little bit about this experience going to this game, not being a reporter. And do you feel like there was a little bit of PTSD from the industry?
I mean, now that you mention it, and now that we spoke, since we spoke for the first time, thinking about it, there was, and it's something that I just catch myself thinking. I was like, wow, I didn't know about that, but yes, there was some of it, because, as I said, I just planned to go to the game, and I was sitting there. I was in Madrid when we went for a vacation, and I was watching the game and enjoying it. Sometimes I wasn't even watching the game, and it didn't matter because I didn't have to write about it. I didn't have to think and talk about it afterwards or anything. So, and then the people who I was like, were you even watching the game? I was looking at the coach, his reactions. That was driving me insane. So these kind of things that as a fanatic, you don't, you take for granted, let's put it that way. Because if once you become a reporter, you have to be thinking it on a different level. You're already thinking of what you're going to say, what you're going to do, what you're going to write about it. So it is a little bit different. And as I mentioned before, not that it's wrong with the people that are doing it. They do an amazing job, and I respect. But there's also this other side where you just have to know that you're there for a reason, and that's your job. That's great. And if you're willing to take that, go for it. It's great. I mean, just a quick experience right here. At the studio, the last major thing that happened for me working, it was a few days before, actually. We all had to leave the studios and the offices because of COVID. It was the death of Kobe Bryant. So for that, as I remember exactly what happened, because it started with some tweets, and just suddenly you see somebody get up, and then you retweet her. And I was at the newsroom that day, and as soon as I saw that, I sent a text message to my wife, and I was like, "Yeah, I'm not gonna be home anytime soon for sure." And it was early in the morning. It was 10 o'clock maybe. I knew that it was gonna be a long day. And yeah, of course, we left that day probably 2 a.m. since 7 a.m. probably. Those kind of things that, yes, I mean, how often it happens? Not that often, I know. But if you would go to a tournament, let's put it that way, you know that your days are gonna be 7 as soon as the moment that you get up until late in the morning next day, or early in the morning next day. So those kind of things is the things are you have to be aware, and then you just have to make sure you are. I don't want to say I don't have a solution. That's my thing. I don't, but I think just being conscious, being aware of this helps us. And just remember, it's not going to be easy. It's not going to be. Talk about it. Talk to your producer. Talk to your director. Whoever you're going to talk to. Make sure that you don't get burned out. The reason why I mentioned this is because it took me over 2 years not to go to a stadium. COVID had to do a lot to it, obviously, but also I wasn't even looking forward to go to a sporting event. There was also just to watch sport news on the TV. I didn't watch the sport news. So I would watch the game and sometimes just listening to music, just bring the volume all the way down because I didn't even want to hear this guy. So it took a while for me to like detox from all this, the experiences that you live day by day, as in listening to news, more other colleagues talking about a game, talking about sports, I had to detox for a long, long time. And of course, as I said, I would watch only the games that I'm aware that I was interested in, but with the music. And that was for years. My wife thought that I was crazy, and she thought that I went mad after that. But it was just I didn't want to hear anybody talking about. I would just want to watch the game. As soon as the game was over, change the channel or listen to music or something else. So those are the things that you don't realize how involved you're in it until you have to step out, and then you just see yourself. Yeah, wow. And you asked me, is there any PTSD? I didn't know really, but there was.
Yeah, and it sounds like also the watching the games and the music, just putting music over it, may have been maybe like a coping mechanism, right? Because this is something you're extremely passionate about. I mean, I can tell when you talk about it, your face just lights up. But unfortunately, there's a lot of ways that the news industry can improve that makes the job less traumatizing for sports reporters, for journalists, anchors, producers, everything. Like we have a lot of work to do to make sure that we, are not being overworked, burnt out, that we have work and life balance, that we don't have like extremely high expectations that are unreachable, and so much more. But I'm glad that you're doing well now, that you've detoxed from it. I completely understand because I'm right there with you. It's been almost 2 years since I left too in 2020, and I've been detoxing these past 2 years. So you're not alone in those feelings. And then, to go a little bit into the positive or the bright side, can you talk a little bit about, you also told me you have a podcast that you're working on the side.
Yes, I've been working with it for a little bit over 2 years now, and it's doing well. It's something that it's completely different from what I used to it. We're marketing a Mexican soccer fans, but especially it's tough to say it, but it's pretty open. Our co-host, his name is El Super Mojado. He's a Mexican wrestler with a mask, luchador mask on it.
Okay.
And his name is El Super Mojado. And why we want to target people like El Super Mojado, because we notice every time we go to a soccer game here in the US, all this, I don't want to call them just Mexican, anywhere from Latin America that are passionate about soccer, they would have, and they cannot go back to their countries because of their status. Yeah. They would go to a game and they would pay a lot of money. They would travel from Arizona to anywhere to just go to this game, because for 90 minutes, they get to experience a little bit of what's it like back in their countries while a soccer game is going on. So we get to curse a little bit. We get to joke around. It's completely different. It's a little bit more relaxed, and people like it. So we wanted to just, I don't want to say just target them in general, and it's for everybody really, but they take a good laugh at it, because we do focus on just have content for everybody who cannot go back to their country and enjoy a soccer game back there, just to listen to stuff over here. And we're with them also.
What is the podcast called?
El Mexican Soccer Podcast. So you can find us at El Tri Online. We talk about the Mexican national team. And eltrionline.com, you can find us there. And obviously, you can listen to the podcast anywhere you find podcasts, Spotify, Apple, anywhere. And also, we're live on YouTube. So anytime we go there, you can find us there. And something, just to go back real quick, if we get a quick 2 minutes.
Of course.
We mentioned something. Can we improve this? I wanted to remind everybody who's starting or studying to being a journalist or a sports reporter or anything really in that field. I think something that could help is just to change this stereotype of you have to give everything to the company, otherwise they'll just move you. If you don't, they'll just put you to the side and grab somebody else who's hungrier or who's with more desire to get that spot. Yes, you have to be good at it. You have to give your 100%, but you have to do that for anything you do. So don't feel like we owe only to the news industry or to the big companies. No, it's to anything you do, right? But also make sure you are not over giving. I don't want to say over giving. It's a tough word to say, but you're not giving them. You don't have to give them your life. But I don't know if I'm making myself clear with that. But you don't owe them anything really. They need you as much as you need them in a certain way. So to keep that in mind, it's always good to work for a big company and everything, but also don't take too much pressure for it.
Yeah. The way I like to look at it is kind of honoring yourself, honoring your needs, honoring your boundaries. So placing boundaries where there needs to be boundaries, honoring your body, mental, physical, and emotional. So, if you're feeling overworked or overwhelmed, or you feel like you are having anxiety or panic attacks, especially after difficult news coverage, like the death of Kobe Bryant, which comes 100% with secondary hand trauma, take a day to process all that you went through and take a day off, take a sick day or a mental health day, because you do have to sit and process the difficulties that you face in the news industry. And if you don't, it'll take a toll on you and it'll catch up to you. And it is not fun to deal with accumulated trauma. Take it from a person that did not deal with her trauma in the news industry and it had to deal with it in the aftermath. Well, one, in 2020 when COVID came around, and then two, after I ended up quitting and, having time to actually take care of myself and my needs is difficult. So definitely honor yourself is how I like to look at it.
Correct. And put yourself first. I would say that.
Yeah. And then, so Hugo, that's a beautiful way that we can help improve the news industry. And that's beautiful advice. So thank you for sharing that. Before we go, I am not going to let you leave without doing a sports commentator narration. So choose, I don't know, the favorite game you've ever seen in your life, or what do you want to narrate, but enlighten us with your talents.
I don't know. I mean, what could it be? The one that I got to be at the stadium with, it was when Michael Bradley misses the PK against Chivas in order for them to get the CONCACAF Champions League.
Okay,
just like that, call it like that. I'm not even seeing it right now. Michael Bradley, in Español, it has to be. and say it in Spanish. Go for it. I think this is the beautiful thing about language, right? That when it comes to sports, I think even Americans or people from other countries, and I've heard it before, people have told me they enjoy so much more the commenting in Spanish because there's so much passion that comes with the language. It is. No, definitely. Yeah. And
go for it. In Español.
Let me just remember. Okay, so Michael Bradley. See, I'm in my English mood. Michael Bradley se acerca al manchón penal, pone la pelota. Si la falla, termina todo. Michael Bradley con 11 pasos de distancia sobre el arquero. Dispara, se va por arriba. ¡Chivas, campeón! ¡Chivas, campeón de la CONCACAF Champions League! Vamos ahí.
¡Golazo! Me encanta.
I should have picked the goal. This is the guy who missed the penalty and the other team won. Chivas
He missed
won.
the penalty. Dale, bueno, let's pick one with the goal.
The goal, all right, yeah, let's go. Eso es el... okay, so yeah, it has to be Chivas. I'm a big Chivas fan.
Go for it, Chivas. Vamos, Chivas.
Okay, so Chivas is in the final against Tigres. Y viene... ¿quién llegaba por derecha?
It's okay, take
El
it.
centro para Pulido. El remate de volea. Pulido le mete gol de Chivas. Se ponen adelante en el marcador 2-1. Lo va a ganar Chivas. Con 10 minutos en el final para coronarse campeón. Alan Pulido convierte el 2-1 para Chivas.
Eso.
I have to see it. I haven't been there in a while, so.
That's okay. That's okay. Your whole narration just put me there. It's super exciting. Your voice is amazing. So keep up with that podcast because you're really good and you're really talented. And the wonderful thing is that now you're doing it at your own pace and in your own timing and under your own rules and conditions. So enjoy it.
Thank you so much for having it. Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate this, and nothing. We'll keep us busy.
For sure, for sure. Hugo, thank you so much. It was a pleasure having you.
Pleasure is all mine. Thank you.
Journalists, this one's for you, to help you heal, to help you understand your worth, and to help you know you're not alone. So share the love and subscribe to Spotify and YouTube and follow us on Instagram. The Awakened Journalist is proud to present Media Healers by Emiliana Molina Fajardo.